Hi, friends. Does the president have the powers to end birthright citizenship? That's the question that I'm going to be speaking about in this video. Why are we talking about this? Because yesterday the news broke that the president plans on signing an executive order to end birthright citizenship of children who are born of parents who are undocumented. This is huge. This is huge, huge, huge. Okay, because we're talking about a major shift in policy, a major shift in how we view immigrants. This is huge. Okay, so we're going to dive into this issue. We're talking about a constitutional issue here, the 14th Amendment. Okay, we're all going to be constitutional scholars by the end of the Trump administration, right? Because a lot of challenges are coming forward involving constitutional issues of policies that he is introducing. So in this one in particular, we're talking about the 14th Amendment, which says all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and the state wherein they reside. It then goes on to talk about due process, right, and equal protection under our laws. We're setting those issues aside and we're only focusing on the first section, which talks about citizenship. Citizenship historically has been a big problem, obviously, in our country where slavery is concerned and African Americans is concerned. Okay, so the 14th Amendment, as many of you may know, have its roots in the issue of slavery in this country, and so the first part of this 14th Amendment certainly initially applied to slaves, to African Americans who were born on U.S. soil, okay? That's the historical roots of the 14th Amendment. Now what we're talking about is fast forward hundreds of years, and now we're talking about whether this applies to children who are born in this country of parents who are undocumented, meaning that they are not permanent residents and certainly they're not U.S. citizens. Should they have the right of citizenship? That's the question here. President Trump says no, and there are many others, who agree with him, right? And then there are others who do not agree with him. All right, so let's dive into this issue a little bit. The big issue is, can he do this, or is this something that Congress has to do? And so actually it's both, right? So from the standpoint of executive power, Trump is the type of president that wants to use all of his powers, okay? He wants to use it to the fullest extent. And if he uses the powers, right? The powers around national security, right? Because he can make a national security argument here too. So if he uses those arguments and he introduces or signs an executive order that changes birthright citizenship, it can be challenged, and most likely it will be challenged, and it will go all the way up to the Supreme Court for the Supreme Court to answer the constitutional question of what does the 14th Amendment mean within the context of children who are born here in the United States of parents who are undocumented. So it will go all the way up to the Supreme Court for them to answer that question. And then also certainly for them to determine whether the president has exceeded his powers or not. So constitutional issue this is. Okay, so one of the arguments that those in favor of what the president is doing, one of the arguments that they are making is that this 14th Amendment actually does not apply to children who are born here of undocumented parents because of a clause, right? A clause in the 14th Amendment, which I just read, which says, subject to the jurisdiction thereof, meaning that this is their argument. They argue that based on this clause here, the 14th Amendment rights does not apply to children who are born of foreign officials, you know, like a diplomat, certainly a diplomat from England who has a child here in the United States, does citizenship is not conferred onto that child. No, that child is a citizen of England, right, of Great Britain, right? So that's one point. Secondly, of occupying armies that would come here and occupy the United States. If those soldiers had children born on U.S. soil, those children are not U.S. citizens. So they make the argument that if this clause applies to those people, how much more should it not apply? It should also apply to those who are aliens here illegally, right? They should not have the right of citizenship. So that's what they're resting this whole argument on. And so it's an issue for the Supreme Court to take up. This will be the first time the Supreme Court will answer this question of whether these children are U.S. citizens. So this is going to be an interesting year to watch as the Supreme Court hears arguments on this issue and how they will rule. Okay, so there's nothing in our constitutional history that addresses this issue. So this is going to be the first time, again, that this issue will really be addressed before the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court have in the past addressed the issue of whether children born of those who are here permanently, permanent residents, or should they be citizens? And the Supreme Court says yes. Those children of permanent residents should be citizens. They have not addressed this issue of those who are born here of undocumented immigrants. So this is going to be a very interesting one to watch. Thank you guys so much for paying attention to these issues. Continue to follow McBean Immigration Law TV. Subscribe if you have not yet done so. Share this video with others. And certainly, friends, I'm going to come before you again and again about these issues as they develop. This is important stuff that you need to understand, and you need to understand it well. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.